All right, well, it looks like everybody's in so far. So I'm going to go ahead and get us started. So thank you for joining us today for our first ever listening sessions. These are the first time that we've done anything like this, purposefully connecting our reviewers and our grantees. And we really hope that hearing how the needs of our community have changed in the last 6 months directly from the service providers will really help us make better, more informed decisions as the grant cycle begins. The goal of today's conversation is not to discuss specific grant proposals, but rather the conversation should be focused on the impact the pandemic has had on nonprofits and the needs of our clients. So this session will last about an hour. In the first 40 minutes or so will be a moderated discussion with our panelists, and with the final 15 to 20 minutes left for Q&A, but please feel free to ask questions throughout. I'll kind of be feeding that. The attendees are all muted, but you can submit your questions throughout, like I said. And I would like to remind everybody of CFNIL's confidentiality policy. Everything that's discussed here, especially including the attendees' identities, is confidential and should not be discussed outside of the meeting. We are recording this as well, but it will be only available to our advisors. So to kick everything off, I'm Sarah Lambert. I'm the Community Investment Director at the Foundation, so I oversee all of our grant making processes. We also have James Patterson, who is our program director. He oversees community grants. And Jen Smith, who you can't see right now because she turned her video off. She's our engagement director. There's Jen. She oversees all of our communications, and she is also going to be tech support today. So if you have any issues, please chat her and she will help you out. So to start everything off, I'm going to have everybody introduce themselves. So if you can tell us who you are, your organization, what kind of services you provide. So Anne, if you want to lead us off.
Sure. I'm Ann Wasser, and I'm the director out at Severson Nature Center.
Excellent. All right, and Richard.
Yes, I'm Richard Rather. I'm the producing artistic director at Artists Ensemble Theater, the professional theater in residence at Rockford University.
Excellent. And you'll notice that he has a much more professional setup than the rest of us for the Zooming. So, yeah. All right, Margot.
I'm Margot Stedman, and I am the Education and Community Engagement Director at the Rockford Symphony Orchestra.
Thank you. And Dave?
Hi, I'm Dave Burns, and I'm Executive Director at Midway Village Museum.
Excellent. And Carrie?
Hi there, I'm Carrie Acevedo. I'm the Executive Director at Rockford Area Habitat for Humanity.
Excellent. Thanks, everybody. Well, thank you for joining us, and thank you for sharing your experiences. I know the last 6 months have been kind of wild, especially for your organization. So, so for our first question is, how has your organization's operations changed since the pandemic began? Have you had to change your service delivery? How are you still engaging your clients and your communities? So. Anybody want to start?
I'm happy to jump in. I mean, our two biggest revenue generating programs are our school field trips and summer camps. So those took a really hard hit. So school programs is pretty much non-existent for the year. I think we had one trip or maybe two in the spring before everything shut down. Summer camps we were able to run, but we ran at basically half capacity or less than half capacity. So we took a really big financial hit, but we're able to do some other programs this year virtually that we hadn't really done before that had kind of some unexpected positive outcomes. So for the last 25 years, we've done wildflower walks in partnership with the Natural Land Institute, and it's a 10-week series. And this year we recorded all of them. And the reach was probably 10 times what our in-person walks were. And we had a number of people, especially that are shut-ins or living in assisted living facilities, that said, hey, can you please keep doing programs like this? Because we still want to learn about the wildflowers and see what's in bloom, but we can't get out there anymore. Mm-hmm. So we've had some unexpected kind of positive things like that, and some elements that I think we'll keep doing even once this is all over.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's great. It actually forced you to be a little bit creative, and that worked out. Yes. How about you, Richard?
Well, March 12th, we had to close the show that we had just opened after just 5 performances. We've been closed ever since. We cannot perform. Then our following show, the May show, was also obviously canceled. We had a summer children's theater tour that has been graciously funded by Community Foundation for the last 4 years. That had to be canceled because that goes to the Park District playground programs. Initially, we thought we might be able to do that, but then they said, no, they don't really want outside people coming in. And so that got canceled. We've canceled last week. We were supposed to open our opening show of our 17th season. That has been canceled. And it doesn't look too bright in the future for having productions. We are trying to look at ways and things that we can do. We are currently, actually next week, we go to WNIJ to record a radio play, The Curse of the Western Star. It's an adaptation of an Agatha Christie mystery. We'll be recording that next week, and that will be broadcast sometime in October. We don't have air dates for that yet. That's really the only thing right now that we can say is actually coming. We have other things that we're working on, but that's it.
Okay, thank you.
And of course, there's no ticket income coming from that. So our revenue stream is completely shut down.
Yeah. All right, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
How about you, Margot?
Yeah, we're in a similar situation of Richard. We have a little more flexibility, it sounds like. We had 2 concerts canceled in March and April. Disney was supposed to happen in May. We have not canceled that. We are going to reschedule. So that's still indefinitely postponed. We had to cancel our youth concert outreach that usually we do for 1,500 to 2,000 students at the Coronado. We had to cancel youth orchestra year-end concerts. And then our July 3rd concert was canceled. So we were lucky to get the PPP loan. So we were able to still work some over the summer. And we have been working frantically with some furlough weeks and cut hours in there in between. And we had our first socially distanced concerts at Mississippi this past weekend. Yay!
Yay.
It was a lot of work, but it was really exciting, and it very, very, very exciting to be able to do that. But there's no way to sell tickets to that in a automated way. So a lot of things were done by hand. The workload was easily double. And even for our musicians, things like shields for the brass and winds, we had them custom built. Our personnel manager went and bought the lumber and built everything. And I've already been on the phone this morning with someone saying, can we borrow those or rent those from you down at NIU? So there's lots of things like that. Youth orchestra also started over the weekend. The first youth orchestra rehearsals, we're doing them into 3 smaller groups ensembles. So strings are inside and masked, and brass and winds are outside. Truncated season, of course, because once brass and winds can't be outside, we're done for now. And it's interesting because we feel that it's not fair to charge it the same tuition for that because they're not getting the same service. But of course, it's costing us administratively more to deliver that service to them. But we feel that it's important to continue to meet our mission if possible. So it's been, it's been we're all learning new skills every day. And of course, not being at the Coronado, we've always relied on their Ticketmaster database for ticketing. So we've had to completely learn a module of our database. We're fortunate to have that in our database, but that we didn't really have training on or know. We're also without a patron services manager full-time right now. So we're all kind of piecing that together as well. So it's very exciting and different and new every day.
Well, and I did go to the concert on Sunday, and it was lovely. I felt very safe, and it was so awesome to just be like amongst people and hear live music. It was awesome. So thank you for doing that.
Like having something, we all felt that way. It was so worth it. The extra work was so worth it, but it was
a lot of work. Yeah. So, all right. How about you, Carrie? What's going on for you guys?
Yeah. So there's no way to build a house virtually. So yeah, then you can't pivot when you're physically building houses. So you know, back in March, we had one house under construction at the time. That was our house we built in partnership with Guilford High School. And so the day the schools closed, that house shut down. And so it ended up being a situation where we had to pivot in terms of figuring out who could help us finish that project. The family had kind of a deadline in terms of when they could get out of their lease, and what was supposed to be a June 1st move-in is now going to be October 1st. So we're excited about that. We had to hire some tradespeople to come in and finish that for us. So we did a fundraising campaign to try to make up the difference for that house. And then when the shelter in place was happening, we ended up having to close our Restore. So our single largest funding source for our affiliate is the Restore, which is on the southeast side of town. And so we ended up having to furlough all 17 employees at the Restore for a period of time. We also received the Paycheck Protection Plan funding from the federal government. And so when we were able to reopen in June, we did so. We bounced back pretty easily. Our revenue was taken about a 20% hit, but we were thinking maybe a 50% hit we were gonna, take when shoppers came back. Eventually, once we moved to, phase 4 and we were able to, congregate small groups of people, we brought volunteers back for 3 separate builds. And so we have 3 houses under construction. Currently, we're supposed to have 6 houses under construction right now. So we've had to cut our operations in half, partially due to both financial capital and of course, human capital. We rely on volunteers to build our houses. We only have 1.5 staff members that work in our construction field. And so everybody else is a volunteer. And as I'm sure you can imagine, Habitat volunteers tend to be retired people. And so we have a very vulnerable population as it results, as it relates to our volunteers. And so about half of them came back. And so some of our houses, some of the skills required to do the work require more than 8 or 10 people on site. And so we've had to rent cranes, and we've had to hire subcontractors, and we've had to hire roofing crews for the first time. And, we'll see once we get to drywall what that looks like, because you can't really drywall a house on 6 people. And that's about the average of the volunteers we're getting per day. Then when Rockford Public Schools decided to go only 2 days in person, we had to pivot again in relation to the high school builds. This year was the year we were supposed to have East High School. And so now we are not building either of those houses. And so our capacity in terms of construction is at about 50% right now. And then our Restore is back up to, we still have some, condensed hours. We've had to increase the amount of money it costs to keep a space that big clean. It's 36,000 square feet. And it's not like we're getting pallets of brand new materials from a distributor. We're actually getting used toilets from people like you. And so it is a significant increase in cost to do business at the Restore, because we have to sanitize everything. It has to sit for 24 hours, and our processes have definitely changed there. So operations at both the construction site and at the Restore have been gravely different than when we, started out this year. So we're trying everything we can to assist as many families as possible. But the truth of the matter is we're not going to be able to serve as many as we thought we were going to this year.
Okay, thank you.
Carrie, a follow-up question real quick.
Yeah.
I've talked to some construction friends of mine, and they say that building materials, in particular for framing and all of that, are very hard to come by. And I know at least a few that are basically laid off because there's the part that they do can't happen until the framing. So is that affecting you as well?
Absolutely, especially as it relates to lumber. In the beginning of the pandemic, lumber was about twice as much as it was last year for construction season, and now you can't get it. We are still waiting on drywall. We ordered garage doors in April, and we can't get garage doors. We can't get roof clips. Just a series of, you know, materials, and we consistently have to shut the construction site down with volunteers and say, until we can get that material, or you know, until we can find an alternative, we have to, you know, the timeline has had to shift pretty dramatically, you know, based on the need for materials. What we'll notice now next year is that not just the pandemic will affect lumber prices, but the wildfires will affect lumber prices. So anytime there is a natural disaster or a large wildfire like we have happening now, that affects our lumber prices significantly. And sometimes it'll be 2 or 3 times more than what, you know, a normal 2x4 or sheet of plywood would cost. So yeah, that has affected us also.
Wow.
Okay.
Thanks.
All right. Dave, how's it going?
Yeah. Well, back in March, what was it, March 16th, we had to totally shut down, and we were shut down for 14 weeks. And then at the end of June, we were able to open up on a limited basis. We've had to cancel a number of our large events, such as World War II days, Civil War Living History days, World War I days, because we can't figure out how to do the social distancing for such large groups. We are doing tours of the village on a limited basis, you know, only 9 people at a time. And we also, we've tried some of our special events on a limited basis, where we have people sign up for a specific time that they can arrive at, and then do the event and then leave. So we've had very few people. Maybe in an event where we used to have 500 or 1,000 people, we might have 100, 150 or 200 people. So we're basically running at about 26% of our normal attendance. But the good news is that we are doing something. The other thing, as was meant, that Ann mentioned, is that there are no school field trips going on. Just about all the school districts have banned field trips, something that teachers can't do. So we are working now to develop some sort of learning distance or distance learning concept. And you know, that may seem like a good answer, but our core mission really is that interpersonal contact that people have when they interact with reenactors or with interpreters, and you get that personal hands-on history learning experience. And that's going to be difficult to do in a distance learning situation.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Okay. Well, I know that some of you kind of went into it already, but if anyone would like to expand on the financial impact, how has it hit your operations, and how do you see it kind of playing out long term?
I'll start. I've been doing a lot of grant writing.
I've read more than one from you, yes.
You'll get more. Yeah, it's like I said, we had a brochure all ready to go for our 17th season, and then we had to shut down. So we didn't send it to the printers, and we still haven't, because right now we don't have a season that we can with any confidence say we're going to be able to do. So we're not even promoting ticket sales because we don't have an opening date. We don't have dates. We shifted all of our ticket sales to flex passes so that they're not tickets to a specific date and performance. It is simply a pass that you can come and see a show at Artist Ensemble Theater whenever we are up and running again. But even advertising that is difficult when we don't know when that's going to be. We've had some people who are really quite wonderful patrons who have said, that's fine, we're just going to buy them anyway, and whenever you get going, we'll have them, which is really nice. But Other than that, like I say, all income has ceased, which means that all we're doing, luckily we have a low overhead because we're in residence at Rockford University. We have had to furlough our bookkeeper. Right now, the only two people are myself and our business manager / box office manager. How much longer we can continue that? We did get the PPP loan, but that's over now. So how much longer we can go with that? The problem that we're looking at is a standard production for us in a regular season, a normal season, would cost between $25,000 and $30,000 by the time we pay for the set, the costumes, the rehearsal process, the royalties for the play, everything else. The danger is that we're going to get to a point where we're not going to have that capital to mount a production because we're going to deplete all of our resources by keeping our staff on. So do we furlough everyone? Then at which point we're no longer a viable organization. We're not an organization at all. We're an organization of volunteers, if that. So it's a quandary right now. How long can we keep going? Like I say, we're doing this WNIJ radio show. We are looking at possibly doing a podcast. We are looking at the possibility, because we also not only are working with the Winnebago County Board of Health, but we're also working, we have two unions, the Directors Union and the Actors Union. And the Actors Union, rightfully so, has very strict requirements, not just for performance of social distancing the audience, but rehearsal. How do you rehearse a play with actors and yet keep them safe? So we have a lot of requirements before we can put actors on stage of what we need to do. Even so, we're looking at 1 or 2 person readers theater, because we can't invest in a full production. Maybe we can do just a staged reading of something with a pay what you can audience, which is a low cost that we can put up and at least get something as far as donations. That's the best we can do right now. Not only that, but with everything that we're hearing, they're saying that it'll be at least a year from the time we begin vaccinations before we'll see a theater full. So how do we hold on that long? Those are big questions that we don't have answers to yet. We're taking it one day at a time and seeing what we can do.
Wow, thank you.
We're having similar questions to Richard at the Symphony. So we had a lot of subscribers that had resubscribed before we had shut down, and we've sequestered all of that money and are not using it for general operations. So if we do need to refund them their money, we can responsibly do that. So that's what's led to us having those furlough weeks and reduced hours with reduced pay and such, because we do want to protect that money. We've made a promise to our patrons through that transaction, and we need to be able to make good on that, even if that means a refund to them. So when we do socially distanced concerts, we're looking at trying to do a few in the fall. And right now, the state of Illinois guidelines, we are only allowed to have 50 people total. It does not matter the size of the room. For performing arts, the rule is 50 people. So we have around 250 households of subscribers. So to be able to do enough performances, even to seat our subscriber base so that we can release the money that's being sequestered to cover it, requires multiple performances. And each time we do that, we have to pay our musicians. So we usually pay them for one. So now we're looking at smaller groups of musicians. So then you come into the question of, what are we doing as an orchestra? How do we make sure we're still fulfilling our mission? And what do we need to talk about as an organization with our relationship to the community and to our own mission to deliver live music? What is a symphony? I mean, it's defined, I could go on about the history of the symphony or what, I mean, that's a separate conversation, but it is a conversation we're having. If we're doing chamber music, what does that mean for us, and what's appropriate and what's not appropriate? Even for the Mississippi concert, we could only fit so many musicians on stage for it to be safe. So Steve Larson arranged most of that music himself, spent weeks doing arrangements so that we could perform the music we performed with the limited number of audiences that we had. The other thing that we're coming up against is that we don't have virtual content. We don't have video recordings of our performances because of the way our contracts work with our players. We've never done that. So we are working to do that for the socially distanced performances that we're going to be doing, because as Richard said, we're not gonna have full theaters for a while, and so many of our patrons are in that compromised age group. But we've had I have personally answered the phone twice, and I'm not the main phone answerer here, of patrons that they're like, I can't come. What are my options? And we say, well, we're gonna video them. Do you have a computer with internet that you can read it? No. I mean, these older patrons they might have their phone, but they don't have laptops with internet. That's just not part of their world. It's not a priority. I go to the library to check my email. I do that once a month. So even this idea that we were trying to work out to be accessible to our underserved, even our regular patrons, is not going to work. And then we're also grappling with the fact that when we were at the Coronado, we gave away a lot of tickets to underserved audiences through our share seat program for people to come in and see it. We gave away a lot of tickets to other nonprofits to use for fundraising events to support them. If we can only have 50 people in the room, and that doesn't even accommodate our subscribers, how do we still support the community in those other ways that we've always been proud and happy to do through ticket donations and things? How do we remain accessible to the whole community and fight that stigma that the symphony is an elitist thing? I mean, things like social distancing, it makes the arts even more removed and elite than people already feel they are. And we just think that's not true. We think anyone would enjoy being at the symphony. But now these tools and avenues that we were able to make it accessible we're struggling just to seat our subscribers so we can release restricted money to cover basic expenses. So how do you—
Yeah, Margot, sorry.
Yeah.
I was going to say the same thing is happening in science and nature organizations. Lawrence Hall of Science, which is at UC Berkeley, just released a study that they're expecting fully 1/3 of informal science institutions not to reopen because they financially closed their doors, and those that are remaining open, the areas that are getting cut are those access programs. So whether it's bus scholarships or summer camp scholarships, school program scholarships, all those things that provide access to those that otherwise couldn't do it, that's what's being cut from organizations, because that's, I mean, unfortunately, we're in the position that we're all in, like that's the fluff, which I don't consider it fluff, but when you're talking about, okay, do I have a staff person or do I fund bus scholarships? Like, okay, I need that staff person. And so that's, I mean, we are not there yet, but depending on how long this goes on, and if we're not doing school programs and we are only doing half summer camp, we're supposed to have our largest fundraiser in October. It happens every October, and doing it as a virtual event, and we're going, all right, fingers crossed, let's see how this goes. Because it's about 1/5 of our budget. No, not quite that much, 1/6 of our budget. And so we're like, okay, everybody hold your breath and see what happens. And it does, I mean, obviously impacts next year and what we're able to do. And we're in kind of an interesting situation in that we've had a ton more people out. Nature is free and it's the safe place to be. So Severson Dells and the rest of the forest preserves have had an insane summer. Even the rivers, I mean, the number of people tubing and paddling have been off the charts. So we're seeing this where we have many more people coming out than normally do. We don't really have a way to safely meet their needs. I mean, we've been doing a number of small group hikes throughout the summer. So usually at least once a week, sometimes twice a week, depending on what's going on, we're leading small groups. So we'll have 10 to maybe 15 people at a time. But depending, again, like our night hikes, we'll have a waiting list like 30 people long. It's like, well, we will bring in a volunteer that's willing to lead another group. but we're still not able to meet the need of everybody coming out. And we're offering most of those programs for free just because we want, again, people are having are stressed right now, and having a safe place to go that's free and accessible. Like, we want people to remember that nature is for everybody and be able to provide that opportunity, but it still costs us. It still costs us in staff time and all that as well.
For us, we're in a pretty unique kind of financial situation. So we have a really diversified, fundraising platform. But at the top of that is our Restore. It's about $1 million entity annually. And so we're going to take about a $300,000 hit on Restore income this year at a minimum. But the real kind of crux of our story is about our homeowners. We build the next home on the back of our hundreds of homeowners that came before them. And so every time a homeowner makes a mortgage payment, we can use that money to then fund the next project. That's the whole basis. It's the fund for humanity. 60% of our homeowners had to go into forbearance. 60% of our homeowners could not make their mortgage payments. So we had to forbear their mortgages, which means, our monthly income is decreasing substantially. 30% of our home buyers or our homeowners got COVID. So significantly affected. So low income African-American women were impacted significant in Rockford. And 30% of our homeowners, a little over 30% of our homeowners got COVID. For some of them, that meant it ran rampantly through their homes. And so their children got it, and their mothers got it, and their grandmothers got it. Because, when you buy a home, and it's big enough for your family, you let more family in. And so it ran through our clients so quickly. It was devastating in the beginning, the number of calls we were receiving from families saying, I have it, I can't work. And many of our families, so they're low to moderate income families, and so they work in service industries. And so many of them have been furloughed, many of them have been laid off, many of them work for organizations that just closed their doors completely. Hospice nurses, CNAs, home healthcare nurses, those kinds of businesses got hit significantly. Our third largest revenue generator are churches. We are a faith-based Christian ministry, and so our third largest funders are churches. Churches aren't meeting, and so there's no second collection, and there's no extra endowment dollars. There's no, contributions to our faith build. And so at a time where we would normally have, brought in somewhere around $50,000 or $60,000 in church contributions, we have a little over 3,000. And so we've taken a significant hit at the Restore, a significant hit in our mortgage payments. Thankfully, the city of Rockford came up with a mortgage relief program, and then the Illinois Housing Development Authority has as well. So some of those homeowners have been able to apply directly to state and local governments to try to, get emergency mortgage relief. But the fact of the matter is a majority of that money went to renters. So when the money got earmarked, because we have such a high rental community in Rockford, a majority of the people who live in our community rent. And so the rental assistance bucket was a lot bigger than the mortgage assistance bucket. So those are kind of the three biggest hits we took. And we rely on that income from our Restore on a monthly basis to cover our operational and overhead costs. That's not a direct program assistance. And so it resulted in furloughs, and it resulted in, less program money and those kinds of things. So.
Wow, that's really stark. Thank you, Carrie. And we do have one question specifically for you that came in about approaching local building material sales representatives to discuss in-kind donations. Is that the sort of thing that's an option for you guys?
It is both locally and internationally. So we're a part of a parent organization, Habitat for Humanity International. And so they've secured shingles for us through GAF, which is amazing. So we weren't required to buy shingles this year for the first time. So that was great. Yale came through Habitat International and donated all the door locks and those kinds of things. So we've been able to, get in-kind donations through Habitat International. Locally, we've had some companies really step up to the plate. This year, the local union, the local plumbers and pipe fitters union, Local 23, is doing 100% of our plumbing in kind for us this year. So
Wow.
yes, they're bringing their 5th-year apprentices in. I know, we're so grateful for them. So what generally costs us about $10,000 a house in plumbing, we've been able to get for free because of the local unions. Labor is easier to get in kind. So Bainey Roofing actually came in and roofed all of our houses with the free shingles that we got. And so they donated all their services in kind. As it relates to physical building materials, we've gotten some things for free, but it's the service provider and the labor that we're actually, having really good luck with as it relates to in kind. Our concrete company gave us a significant break this year, but we had to pay full price for the materials because the materials are just skyrocketing for everyone. And to ask businesses to give us those materials for free has not been fruitful for us, but getting free labor has been. So Troy Lee Excavating came in and excavated 2 of our 3 houses for free. So the community has really stepped up to the plate. We've done business with the same companies for a long time. So I think they recognize they have a loyalty to us and we have a loyalty to them. So
it sounds like you've worked all the angles that you.
We created we've created a few new committees in the midst of COVID. One is the cost reduction committee. We've brought some people together who are movers and shakers who kind of know everybody. That's just how we got Bainey Construction and Troy Lee Excavating. And so that's been really helpful for us. We're just using our network of people to say, who do you know? Who can we talk to about, seeing if they'd be willing to donate some services to have them. That's a great question. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Great. All right. Well, I do want to encourage everybody, please use the Q&A. Let us know if you have any questions to ask directly. One thing that this wasn't on the prepared questions list, so I hope it's okay that I'm asking, but Margot, you kind of alluded to the fact that technology is an issue. Is that something that you're finding in trying to reach your clients, is that there's a technology divide that you can't overcome?
For us, definitely. I would say twofold. One, we don't have all the technology we need to even record at the level we would want. And then 2, people can't get it. And I think we're dealing with that on with our education programs front and with our older patrons that just, they go to the library to use the computer. That's not a priority for them. More than we thought. We didn't really at the beginning of this think, educationally, yes, we thought, but with our patrons, we didn't think it was going to be a barrier. And as we mailed out a letter last week with that information in it, the calls have been, that doesn't help me. So we're back to square one in some ways.
I mean, good to know. Yes.
For us, actually, one of the things that we're working on right now, and because we've done a couple of these radio plays with WNIJ, is we are actually looking at doing audio podcasts, not necessarily for our standard audience. Like Margot, a lot of our audience is older and not tech savvy, but basically we feel we need to continue to create, we need to continue to perform. And so what medium can we use? Well, that is a medium that we can take a couple of actors, put them in front of microphones, and we can record something and we can put it out there. And it's something that we're having to learn on the run here as we do this, but we have hopes that we can get this rolling. And if we can, the one nice thing about technology and the internet is we're not limited to the local audience. We can create product, we can put it out there, and anyone in the world who has internet can listen to our production. We can't really, what we're opting to do is to do this on a volunteer basis. So we're gonna do this, it's gonna be out there for free, and we're gonna ask for donations. And if we get popular enough, hopefully we can attract sponsors. That's the only thing that we can hope for. But at least it's a way that we can do something that is low cost and might be a future for us as far as performing. Because as Margot said, doing it in front of a live audience
Yeah, there's actually a nature center. I just heard that earlier this week. They
Did we just lose Anne?
oh, I think I'm back. Maybe.
Oh, there you are. Okay, great.
So this is our technology issue. We are, I don't know if you guys all know where we are, but we're located out southwest of Rockford. So our internet options are slim. So depending on the day, our internet is better or worse. But what I was going to say to Richard's comment is that that virtual piece, I actually was talking with another nature center director down in South Texas, and they do bird banding. And normally they would have like 20 or 25 people at the center watching a bird banding thing. They started recording it, and their last bird banding session they recorded, and I think they did it on Facebook Live. They had 12,000 people watch it. So 25
Wow.
people
Okay.
to 12,000 people.
There's so many virtual options, but the hard part for all of, I think for all of us, is how do you monetize that? In that, like, it costs money to have that technology and the staff to put it out there. But if you're not getting revenue from it, then you're just you're just cycling part of the problem.
Yeah. Well, and Dave, I know that you guys are looking at options for kind of changing your displays and stuff, right?
Yes, we've taken all of our hands-on. We spent the last, 6-8 years trying to put more hands-on activities into exhibits. And now what we're trying to do is redo that or undo that. So we're in the process of doing that. But this weekend, because we're not doing World War II days, there are about 12 units that are going to come to the site this weekend, and we're going to video their presentations and then put together a, I'll call it distance learning because I don't know what else to call it, program together that we're going to send out to anybody who's interested, especially for schools and things like people like that who aren't able to attend World War II days. So this is going to be an experiment to see how that works and what we have to do to make it better. So we're going to try that the end of this month and see how it goes.
Okay. Well, and that doesn't not cost money, right?
Well, it's staff time. I think we are using very bare bones equipment. We may be using cell phones, but we're going to try to do it as cheaply as we can.
Okay.
One of our big
All right.
technology expenses in the beginning was just getting everybody remote. So yeah, we had to buy laptops and printers, and I mean, we were not prepared to go remote. Our staff came to the office every day, worked on an old school desktop, and did the best we could. And when we went remote, we had to outfit 7 staff with laptops. So it was a pretty expensive feat for us to be able to, get our staff mobile. Now that we are, it's okay. But like Margot, many of our volunteers, if we asked them to join a Zoom meeting, it's difficult at best. So.
I'm laughing because we did not have that luxury. So our staff were all at home working on like 8-year-old laptops and getting cut off on Zoom meetings and just doing the best we could. But it was like, sorry.
Yeah.
Bye.
Yeah, I mean, our staff was everyone was using their personal computers,
Yeah.
Which was awful. Like, I just felt bad that was the situation, but it's like, we don't have that much money just sitting around to buy everyone new computers.
Yeah.
It's in the budget for next year. We'll see if we can actually make that work, but it's wishful thinking.
Yeah.
Because I'm actually on my personal laptop right now because we've got old desktops that don't have cameras or microphones.
And we have one webcam that we pass around in our office, so we have to schedule our meetings. Like, I need to keep the webcam today because I have a meeting. I feel you.
Well,
that is. Yeah, please go.
I use a cell phone and my computer. The cell phone gives me the sound and the video, and the computers, because people say, well, let me put this up on the screen for you to look at it. I can't see it on the cell phone, so.
Innovation.
Yep. Well, and that is all consistent with in our last grant cycle, we saw a number of requests for technology upgrades because Windows 7 was no longer being supported, which is just alarming. And I think most of our reviewers will understand that that is like a bugaboo of mine, that you need the equipment to do the job. But that one threw me for sure. So yeah, it's not surprising that you wouldn't be prepared to completely adjust how you manage your business. So, okay, so we've got a question coming in. Due to financial impact or just finding that a different way of doing business is effective, do you anticipate long-term or perhaps permanent changes to your programming model?
Yes.
I'm going to say yes.
Yes, absolutely. Our whole business plan was based on being entrepreneurial. So we were looking at promoting big events, at having an active rentals program. The store basically funded the front half of the museum. The other things that we did to try to make money that funded more than half of our budget. So all of a sudden, all of those things have been shut down at the same time. The plan was, well, if special events are down one year, rentals might be up another, the same year, and so it'll all balance out in the end. But it actually, now that all of them are being hit, we're finding ourselves in a hole. So so far this year, between the PPP loan and grants, we've been able to stay afloat. But 2021 is going to be a challenging year, and yes, we're looking at how we can do smaller events, how we can do things in a more modest way, and still be able to make ends meet.
For us, our program will change pretty permanently, I think. We have historically built brand new homes from the ground up, bought vacant land, dug a hole, poured some concrete, and built a house on that slab. That has resulted in about $140,000 financial commitment per family that we sell that home to. And so we are looking at two new ways to serve families in Rockford. One is a rehab program. So we've been working really diligently with the land bank, Eric Setter at the land bank, and seeing if there are some opportunities for us to do rehabs. The city, there's a lot of money out there for rehabs, and so we don't necessarily have the skilled crews ready to do that yet. So we'll have a little bit of a volunteer deficit that we'll have to make up. But and then the second thing we're looking at is critical home repair. So what we found is that we get calls every day from people saying, the city just came by, they're going to condemn my house, or my roof is bad, I need my garage torn down, I have this plumbing leak, I have this, I have that, I need my house adapted for ADA. And historically, we've just not had the funds or the manpower to be able to do that. And so what we're pivoting to is, if we can serve one family with $140,000 on a brand new house, what could we use that $140,000 for on critical home repair? And so could we help 10 families? Could we invest $15,000 a piece and help 10 families be able to stay in a home that maybe they've owned for a long time, or now that they're a senior, they're on a smaller income because, fixed income because of, Social Security. And so now we are going to reintroduce this critical home repair program into what Habitat for Humanity does in Rockford. And we've got some really exciting opportunities as it relates to rehabs. You'd be surprised the number of houses out there that are already too far gone. But there's kind of a niche for some houses that are abandoned currently or have been sold in tax, in the tax sale, that could be potential, homes for Habitat home buyers. So we're looking to figure out how to help more families with less money. And I think we can do that through repairs and rehabs. So we're going to change permanently. We're going to be totally different than we were in the past, where we have to be better. We have to help more people. We have to serve more people. And that really means taking a look at kind of our core program and figuring out what we can do to affect the most change for the most people.
Yeah, I think for us, we'll be relying more and working more with our AmeriCorps program. So last year, last September was when we had our first AmeriCorps members, and this last year has been absolutely amazing. And so we are looking at how we can better utilize that program to better serve our community. For us, it is about access. I mean, we recognize, I mean, Severson-Dells has been here as a nature center for almost 45 years, but the people visiting and utilizing the programs are not representative of Winnebago County at all. And so how can we be doing more? And so we did start a pilot program last year with Boys and Girls Club and with Chip and those guys over at their fairground site on the west side, because they're only, I mean, they're less than 15 minutes from us. And so we started going into the club twice a week with our AmeriCorps members. And then once a month, the kids were coming out here, of course, until March. And so Chip and I are fingers crossed, like hoping things go well so that we can start doing that again, because the members loved it, AmeriCorps members loved it, the kids loved it, club staff loved it. And how can we be doing more programs like that? So maybe going to the Blackhawk Club, working with the Park District and going into some of their centers as well to do more programs so that we can be bringing nature to people and working more with urban nature and less about, oh, you have to be out at a forest preserve, which unfortunately none of our forest preserves in Winnebago County are actually in Rockford city limits. We technically have a Rockford address, but we're really in Winnebago. So those places are not easily accessible. So how can we make nature accessible and not seem like it's something that's so far away, and something that's scary, because there are a lot of people that it's a scary place. I had a parent when I first started out here that said, you have to remember, it hasn't been that many generations since the woods weren't safe. So we have those fears from our parents and grandparents, like, you don't go in the woods for a number of reasons. And so it's trying to work with those barriers and start in the neighborhoods so that people are comfortable in seeing what they see every day, maybe through a new lens, and maybe then taking the next step to come out to a forest preserve on a free guided hike, and then maybe coming out on their own, and hopefully building that so that we can start to break down those barriers of accessibility, because we do have so much free public green space that is insanely underutilized in this area.
That's awesome. Okay, well, we only have 7 minutes left, and I want to be respectful of everybody's time. So I'm going to move into my last question, which is, how can we help, both as community members and as funders? What can we do? Please don't hold back.
Well, we hope that, we want the community to continue to support Midway Village Museum by coming out and participating in our programs. Obviously we're limited on how many people we can take at one time, but even if you just plan to attend an event once a year, that will help the museum with people continuing to keep the museum in their awareness as we go through and do things. Support through memberships. We're trying to, the fact that maybe you can't come out to the museum as much as being a member, but we do have our membership Mondays and things like that we're doing to try and keep doing things special for our members via social media. And then of course donations to operations. We have a very large physical plant here, 148 acres, 28 buildings that we still need to take care of. We have a very large overhead, and also we have 150,000 artifacts that still need to be maintained, still need to be curated, still need to be taken care of, so that these artifacts will be available to future generations.
For us, it's a two-pronged thing. Right now, we're trying to tread water and stay afloat so we don't have to close permanently. But the next problem is, once we can get people back into a full theater, we're going to need capital to produce, because we won't have any money left. We will be flat broke. So once they say, yes, you can fill the theater now, we're going to be in need once again. So it's, you know, how can we tread water? And then once we can, how do we produce and bring a product like we used to do?
Yeah, I think for nonprofits across the board, I'm going to ask for the unicorn funding, being that general operations, multi-year support. I think all of us have a big fat question mark on what the next 2-3 years looks like, and having funders that recognize that and appreciate that we are doing everything we can, whether, I mean, trying new forms of programming, trying different ways of fundraising, trying whatever we can to keep the doors open and keep programs going in whatever way they can safely. And I know that that's a big ask, and a lot of funders are uncomfortable with that, but we need to have something to measure. And it's like, measure the impacts on community and having the value that all of these different organizations, whether it's building houses, providing music, providing arts, natural history, whatever that happens to be, like all of these organizations provide value to our community. And I think pulling back a little bit on the reporting the exact numbers on things, just a little bit for the next couple of years to give us a little bit of wiggle room to keep going.
Just piggyback on what Ian said, that's kind of definitely the money. But when I was talking with our executive director, Julie Thomas, about this question yesterday, we talked about how we feel like a lot of people in the community are trying to support us. I mean, the Park District bent over backwards to help us have that concert at Mississippi. And over the summer, 100 FM broadcasts our concerts on the radio monthly and let us ask for money during that time. And just that our patrons are saying we want to come back, and helping keep that at the forefront of the conversation, that these organizations are essential to the cultural vibrancy of our community and that it's really making a difference. Yeah, definitely please send money, for sure. But also helping us come up with creative ways to be part of the conversation and to bring our product to the community. You know, every time a subscriber calls, I say, thank you for calling and telling me where you're at, because I don't know that you don't have a computer with internet if you don't take the time to call me and tell me, and I can't even try to solve that problem. So continuing to have these types of conversations and helping us hear from the community and getting them in touch with us, I think is so important, because if the conversation, again, we're in a bubble and we're treading water, as Richard said, in a lot of ways, and hearing what needs to happen can help us focus our efforts in a way to just be more positive and feel like we're not just treading water, we're moving in a direction.
I will echo all of the sentiments about money. Unrestricted operational funding would be fantastic. But I think there's a couple things that have already started to happen that I feel are significantly beneficial to nonprofits. And one is that funders are becoming collaborative. And so we saw that with CRT immediately, and then we've seen that now with the 8-1 Thrive initiative. And so I've been lucky enough to receive money through the CRT, through the Emergency Response Fund, through the United Way. But I think that there is a significant benefit in funders coming together and working together collaboratively to provide assistance to nonprofits. Some of us don't have the capacity or capabilities to do all of that research, to try to find all of the funders. And so I think what organizations like the Community Foundation of Northern Illinois, and places like the United Way of Rock River Valley, and of course NCNE, can come together, Transform Rockford can come together and help nonprofits in a more collaborative way. And I think that looks like funding opportunities. It looks like gap analysis assistance. Like, can you help us figure out what our 5-year plan is? Because I don't know it. And I'm a skilled executive director, and I'm still struggling to figure out what my 3 to 5 year plan looks like. 2 years ago, if you would ask me what my 5-year plan looks like, I would have told you it was having Jimmy Carter in Rockford, building 50 houses in a week, because that was my plan. And now I'm like, I don't really know what that is. So I think continuing collaboration makes a significant amount of sense. Maybe helping us research funding opportunities. Like, we only know what we know. Our circle is only as big as it is. But then I also think maybe just helping us plan, maybe providing consultants that can help us look at what our long-term projections look like. Bringing in some experts into the community to say, your 5-year plan is going to be different because, you know, this recovery is going to take a lot longer than we thought. So, but my number one is money, just so you know.
Yeah. One other thought I've had, and I don't know, maybe James or Sarah, you can chime in on this, but working with investment advisors that are working with people with donor advised funds, if there's some way to have some sort of community effort around that, because I know that there's a whole lot of information coming out about donor advised funds and sort of how they're being used or not. And so if there was some sort of community effort to reach out to those investment advisors and people that have that, like, hey, here are all of these different organizations, which I think to some extent the advisors are doing, but right now I think it might be nice to have a resource of, hey, this nonprofit is in urgent need of this thing or this service or something like that, that would maybe inspire people to be giving more out of that fund now than they might normally.
Yeah, that's definitely a hot button issue right now, for sure. So. Okay, well, we are out of time. I so appreciate your willingness to speak to us, your honesty about what's going on. This was really eye-opening and enlightening, and I hope that everybody was able to take something away from this. So if you have any additional questions or anything else that anyone would like me to pass through to our panelists, please let me know. I can do that by email later. And for our reviewers, we are going to be sending out the recordings of all of our sessions early next week, so everyone has a chance to watch. I will definitely be encouraging everyone to watch this one. So thank you so very much for your time today, and we'll continue this conversation for sure.
Thank you for having us.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you all.
Sarah and James for hosting this session.
Yes, it was our pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks.